Ray, thank you so much for coming all this way
Yes, thank you for having me.
to be on my little circle of trust table.
I love it. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for the gifts.
Yes.
I wanted to show these to the camera, but for those of you that don't know, Baby Ray is a model, and we shoot quite frequently. And she took photos that we shot together and gave me these awesome posters and a. Because my car stinks. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, not at all.
These are gorgeous. Thank you so much. It makes me appreciate my work a little bit more.
You don't get to see it in print.
I don't. I see them on a computer and then I edit them, and then it's just like that's it.
Well, your photos make the best prints. They're just so crispy. The color is on point.
Thank you.
And on that cardstock poster, they just look so good.
Yeah, these are awesome. Thank you so much. I'm definitely gonna put these up in the apartment. Go ahead and tell people. Go ahead and introduce yourself, your name, what you do, all that good stuff.
So my name is Ray. I go by Baby Ray. That nickname actually came from a friend's mom in high school. I used to go over there pretty frequently, and I went by Ray. That's my middle name. And I would go over, and she'd be like, "Oh, hi, it's little Baby Ray. How are you?" And the name just kind of stuck. So when it came time for like a stage name, I guess you could say, it's like Baby Ray kind of fits. So that's where that came from. I am based here now in the Charlotte area, and I am a model / content creator. Now those are both kind of very large umbrellas, as I'm sure
Correct.
you know.
Correct.
So modeling can be anything from lingerie, portraits. I'm really big in automotive scene as well. That's actually a large part of what I do. I travel around primarily with Clean Exhibition. They
Dope.
do indoor car shows.
You know, I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've always had a love for cars. That kind of came from a young age. It was something that I was around. My dad was always working on things, and his dad, and so on. And it was something that I've always had like a passion for. I don't necessarily have the most knowledge, but it's very interesting, and it's something that I enjoy learning more about. And car shows is a really good way to submerge yourself in that community and that culture. And I was already modeling for, I'd say 2 or 3 years at this point.
If you don't mind me asking.
So I'll be 29 in September.
Okay.
So I've been modeling now for going on 5 years. This year,
Wow.
5 years, the modeling and content creating. I know I've come a long way.
Yeah.
And so I saw Clean Exhibition show. One of my friends at the time suggested that I apply. They were looking for models, and I already had such an interest in car shows. My dad took me to like stereo competitions when I was younger. He used to compete. So again, that was kind of like a place that almost felt like home. So I was like, why not? I'll give it a try. I applied. I got the gig, and I've been with them. So this is my 3rd season now working with them. Last year, I was promoted to their spokesmodel, and I got that position again this year.
Nice.
So I tour around everywhere that they go. Any shows that they attend that are not their headline shows, I usually travel to them there as well. I have a booth where I sell merch like that, those posters, air fresheners, stickers, that kind of thing. I've got
And
now a little,
Modeling is what you do full time, right?
yeah, modeling and content creating.
That's all you do.
Yeah, I've been full time since 2020. Yeah, April of 2020. actually.
Which aspect do you like the most?
The freedom, I think, to kind of be able to manipulate your own schedule. And I say freedom lightly,
Yeah,
of
for real.
course, because you really don't ever stop working when you are, employed for yourself. But I left. I was working on cars at the time. Is the job that I left, the industry that I left when I went full time. Things are just not going well there. I wasn't happy. As much as I love cars, working on them, or really just being in the blue collar industry, can be really difficult as a woman. And I don't think I was really ever treated right. The person who ran that particular shop was a rather mean old man. He didn't really like anybody who wasn't an old man like him.
Yeah, the just anything blue collar corporate is very hard. I mean, I came from the corporate world too before I started doing freelance, and I was depressed without even knowing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would try and think of ways to call out of work, or just you know, I had to really push myself to wake
Yeah.
up in the morning to
Oh
get
yeah.
out of bed and go to work, and because you're spending 8-9 hours a day somewhere that you don't want to be just to live paycheck to paycheck. So
And you don't realize how miserable really that it's making you until you get out of it and you feel that weight come off your shoulders. I mean,
yes,
I really wanted to learn more in getting that initial job at the shop. I had known some things here and there from my life experience, but I went into that with that interview. You know, I led with I'm really looking to like get my hands dirty, literally, and learn more. And I just feel like I was bypassed on every opportunity to learn something, or I would learn something, or I'd be trying to learn, and you know, the boss would come in like, "Oh, are you standing around doing nothing?" Like, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to be able to take on more work to benefit you, but it never came out that way. The employees I worked with, all the guys in the shop were always very nice to me. It was just a higher up, a hierarchy issue, to say the least.
do you think that raised with your dad working on cars, do you think that was like your true passion and you wanted to chase it, or do you think you just did it because your dad
So actually, funny story. I think that I probably would have submersed myself more into that at a younger age, and maybe like, you know, went to school for it or started working, you know, as that a job in high school, maybe even taken shop in high school, shop class. I got in trouble when I was 13. I had a drag car that my dad had bought. We were going to strip the whole thing down. I was going to be like a junior dragster. This was a really big thing that I wanted in my life. And I got in some really big trouble at school, and this got back to my parents, and it was just this whole ordeal. And what I did was so bad that they took everything away from me. I mean, like, took the door off the hinges kind of trouble. And he sold that car, and I think out of spite, I stopped wanting anything to do with cars for a really long time. Like, it just kind of broke the relationship between me and my dad. I was like, out of spite, you know, I was 13 at the time. I was a
that's
very
what connected you, and
rebellious.
that's what also broke?
Yes, exactly. So I gave it a really big break for years. I didn't want anything to do with it, and then circled back around to modeling and getting into automotive modeling, and kind of re-sparked that passion again. I tried to get,
Do you still have a relationship with your dad? And
yeah, for the most part. That's kind of a rocky, very, very long story for another day.
yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
everybody,
we're right.
everyone.
Mommy and daddy issues. Who doesn't have them, right? But no, we're on speaking terms. But that's another rabbit hole for
Yeah,
another
no,
day,
I
like I
get it.
said.
I get it.
But when it came around, like I said, to car modeling, I just being submersed back in that culture and going to car shows, really, like, when you see these amazing, astounding builds of all different kinds. Clean Exhibition particularly is an all makes and model show, so it's not just like your indoor tuner car show. You're going to see lifted trucks, you're going to see rat rods, you know, your old school American cars, your tuners, anything slammed. We have a really big lowrider community that usually comes out to our shows, and those builds, if you've never seen lowriders, are just pristine. Every single nut and bolt and
Yeah.
everything has been taken
I used to
apart.
go to shows all the time, and I recently started going to them again. So I've rode motorcycles for about 6 years. And when the pandemic hit, I had to sell them. But I got back into it 2 years later.
Yeah.
3 years, Jesus. And I got back into it. So naturally, being in that world, you're involved in a lot of these shows, and I'm actually grateful to be involved in a new show that just started, where they have each car show is a themed show. The last one we did was like a photo shoot type of vibe.
Yeah.
So we did it at a studio / coffee shop, and we had motorcycles and cars throughout, inside and outside
love
the
that.
coffee shop and
love
the
that.
studio. We had models there, and it was just a whole vibe. So I get it. I really do. It's you know, when I when I started doing my own thing, it's always like work focused. It's always been, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, and then I forgot about like my hobbies and my passions, my things that kind of
Yep.
reset me. Until recently, I had some health issues, and it made me kind of like take a step back and think like, what am I doing or not doing? So I got back into motorcycle riding, and I'm already thinking about buying my second one. And
Good. That's great for you.
so I get it. I love it. During the pandemic, I got hit up by somebody from Hot Import Nights that wanted me to shoot for them. But during the pandemic, budget was stupid,
Yeah.
so it didn't work. But I really wanted to get into that world, and I think I'm finally going to be able to. Something I find very fascinating. I consider you now a friend. You're not just
Yes,
someone
agreed,
I work
agreed.
with. And something I find very fascinating and just so pure about you is how honest you are about your work and what you do about your work. And I work with a ton of different models and content creators, and some of them are very secretive about what they do, but you're very outspoken about what you
For the
do.
most part.
So if you're okay with talking about it,
Yeah.
So you are a OnlyFans content creator.
Yes. Well, it's one of the sites that I'm on, but yes.
Oh, it's one of the sites, y'all. She'll plug it in later. So I've never. I mean, I've worked with a ton of OnlyFans content creators, sex workers, that sort of thing. But I've never really had a conversation with one. So since you're so open about it, I guess my first question is: do you get treated differently by individuals?
Oh, 100%.
How so?
100%. Just the term, I mean, just saying that you're a sex worker alone, immediate negative connotation right out of the gate. There's a lot of people who don't understand. Now, I will say it is becoming a more well-known term, and that's good. I think that it is being discussed. There is a lot of talk and discussion about it. A lot of people like me are very candid about their experiences and what their work is. I think that in order to be appreciated on the positive side of it, you also have to be kind of candid about, there's so many people who think that job or being an OnlyFans girl is so easy. Like, oh, it's so easy. Like, okay, well then go do it then. It's so easy that everybody go do it.
Right.
And I think speaking up about the fact that it's not just taking pictures and posting them and then immediately getting money out of it is, I think it's also important in doing that to the younger generation as well. I say this all the time. There is absolutely no way that I would be where I am or would have been able to handle the work that I do now at a younger age. I always think like, wow, I wish this had fallen into my lap sooner. No, I don't. Like, yeah, that would be nice. I think if I had jumped on a certain train before Instagram algorithms were the way they are, and, you know, when you could blow up on social media for being like a hot girl or whatever it is, that's just not the case anymore. You've got to be a lot more creative about it. And I think kind of showing the younger people, because I had no business doing this at 18. Like, there's just no way. I was too immature. I would not have been handling my money right. I mean, taxes alone. You know, people don't think that about this industry. Like,
Don't even get me started
we also
on
have to
taxes,
pay taxes,
bro.
you know, and me at a younger age, I would have been in such a hole in a bad way doing this. So being really open about it, it is vulnerable, and it does open the door for negativity to come in. But I think when you are more sexually confident and more sexually forward online, you invite that negativity anyways. It is one of the unfortunate things that you have to face as this industry. People are, I mean, I think that's in general, people are always going to have something negative to say. I face that a lot in the car industry as well. There's a lot of men in the car scene who do not like car girls. Like, car girls are just, they're toxic and they're bad, and we do all this stuff for attention, and we only ever post pictures of our butts, and just like, it's just so negative.
I mean, since I was young, it's always been Supras and booties. In all the car magazines
That's
I
what
used
I'm
to
saying.
read.
Like, have you seen
It's just
old
been a part of
import
the
magazines?
Yeah, it's just been a part of the culture.
Created the want and the need for these models in that industry, and then are turning around and being mad that they exist. You know, it's like not taking the blame as the consumer and trying to put the blame on the creator. That wouldn't be a thing if it wasn't consumed. It wouldn't be creative if it wasn't being consumed. So don't consume it and then turn around and blame the creator. You know what I mean? They're the same guys who are complaining about this have following multiple girls that post all kind of saucy things.
I was about to say the majority of people that are even saying anything about it are also people that have a lot of, you know, skeletons in their closet.
100%.
A lot of people are very they're very quick to judge, but you know, if you were to take a look at 90% of those people who, that'd be astounding. But I always say, like, I look at this country like as a whole, and one, I look at where we live. So in the Carolinas alone, it's very, even with my work, with my boudoir work or my nude artwork, some people make me feel a certain way for doing it. But if you were to go to New York or Washington, D.C. or Miami or anywhere in Texas, California, Arizona, the bigger metropolitan places, it's like it's a part of life.
Well, we're in the Bible Belt is the bigger part of that issue.
Right. And it's always made me feel kind of limited as a creator. And, whenever I post that kind of work, there's people that perceive it a certain way, and I perceive it a completely different way. I'm actually, most of the work I shoot, it has nothing to do with sexuality as practicing sexuality. It's just, I'm photographing beautiful people. And unfortunately, not unfortunately, but 90% of my clientele or my collab work are females that approach me. So I would happily photograph males if they wanted to, but we just don't live in that in that place.
Well, not here.
No. Okay, so, and you just recently got married, right?
Yeah. So,
awesome.
Last year.
Sweet.
September.
And he's supportive of everything that you do.
So I was not a sex worker when we first got together. So this is something that I started after our relationship.
Oh, interesting.
So that was a conversation that we had about me getting into that. Now, I will say kind of a little before, I had sold some like individual pictures when I started. Before I actually got on a platform, I kind of just sold individually through like Snapchat or whatever, a little bit here and there. So it was something that I had a small background on. So when that conversation came time to have, I was just like, is this something that you would be okay with? Here's this, here's that. And we communicate really well, thankfully. So we just have conversations about it. As my career evolves and grows, we have conversations about it. I am such a, as you said, like an open person. I bring things up. Hey, here's this. How do you feel about it? Kind of thing. So he has definitely been super supportive of me. He goes with me to almost all my car shows.
That's awesome.
So most people have probably seen him and maybe not even known it. I don't necessarily blast his face all over social media. There's no need for that. It's my work accounts.
Right.
But no, he's great.
That's awesome.
I definitely could not do what I do without that solid support system, like at all. There is no way. I would be a mess.
Yeah. And it's not for everybody. I have met quite a few models that they started it and they like the quick money, but then they forget all the negativity that comes with it. And, they later on suffer mentally for it. They get depressed or they get
that's not anything that I haven't had to deal with myself. When you are there's a big positive and negative. Just like anything, there's pros and cons, but when you are having to be so vulnerable, especially even just nude photos, when you are being your most vulnerable, literal stripped down naked self online, and you're putting your face out there online in a way that you really can't ever take back. It can boost your confidence so much in the same way that it can strip all of that away from you.
Wow.
Because when you've got people, paying for you to be pretty or getting tips, oh, you're so beautiful, like that, that can go to your head. That was a big part of why I fell so in love with this, was getting that attention you wouldn't normally every day get, and just hearing this belief that people had in me that I didn't have in myself. Even just making my Instagram and starting modeling, I was realizing like, wow, people see something in me that I don't see in myself. Maybe I need to reflect and try to look at myself a little differently, have more faith in myself. But at the same time, when say your numbers go down or times are slow, right now we're practically in a recession, people don't have as much fun money to spend, things like that. You have to try not to take those things as a direct impact of like, well, what's wrong with me? I see this person doing so well. What's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? Why is I'm not getting any responses to this message, or I'm not getting enough likes on my photo, whatever it may be. That can really, like you said, just destroy your mental health.
Despite the nature of it, it's an actual business.
Yeah.
It's just
100%.
Right. It's just a business that not everybody is willing to do, and a business that not everybody is welcoming of. But it's still a business.
Yeah, and just as much as you can love what you do all day long, there are going to be things about it that you don't like. There's no like having your cake and eating it too. No job is perfect and going to keep you happy all the time. They come with frustrations. They come with trials. Running your own business and your brand is tiresome. That is nonstop 24-hour work. But I don't know. It's hard. You got to stay focused. And, last year was pretty bad for me. I suffered a lot of burnout last year, and it hit me really hard. I was really going through some personal mental issues as well that I really needed to get a hold of. And I think they kind of both really went hand in hand, and it affected my business very negatively. It was like almost like I felt like things weren't going good, so it affected my mental health, but then my mental health turned around and made things worse, and it was just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So I am now trying to come out of that hole.
I went through that recently. I was in business with I guess you can call him an acquaintance / friend. And
those are hard relationships to have.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't like close friends, but we had done business together, and it's always been good. But I had been going through a lot of things. Granted, this is not an excuse, but after the fact, this is what I realized. But it was the first time in my life where I was called tacky. Somebody referred to me and my business methods as tacky, and at first I was very offended.
Yeah, that's quite a word.
But I was only offended for maybe like 2 seconds, because I know the caliber of this person and the people that this person associates with. So for him to use that kind of verbiage, it made me really reflect on why he was describing me that way. And when I started to look back at it, it was extremely tacky of how I dealt with things. And this was not too long ago either. This was a time where I was going through massive depression. I was very stressed out, burned out. I ended up in the hospital. They thought I was having a heart attack. Thankfully it wasn't. It was just me being...
Yeah, I've heard you. We've talked about this. I've heard the story. Yeah. Stress affects you in ways you don't realize until it's too late.
Very much. And just having health complications and just not making the right decisions on a daily basis when it came to food, when it came to sleep, when it came to, you name it.
It's a spiral. It just keeps going. Yep.
And it directly affected the one thing that I love almost more than anything in this world is my career, my business. And not only did I lose really good clients, but I potentially lost really good friendships and connections. And it was all because of me not taking care of my mental health. So now this is why I have this whole new structured schedule where I have specific days where I take off. And even if I'm not taking them off, I'm still doing stuff that I love. So even if it's creating content, but I'm creating content for me, that's not necessarily work for me. That's like, I don't know, like just rejuvenating or whatever you want to call it. But it's a real thing, man. And that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners don't really talk about, is the mental health side of things, because some people can't even afford to take a day off. So with that being said, how did you overcome that?
So thankfully in the process of going through that, I was already in therapy. That's a journey that I've been on. I want to say 3 or 4 years now come this September. This has been with the same person consistently every 2 weeks to a month, depending on how much I need the frequency of. I've been seeing the same person. I just was going through a lot with like family and things at the time that I had started, and childhood traumas and just all these other things mental health kind of not being the best. And I personally, I'll be vulnerable real fast. I've personally struggled with mental health issues since I was 11,
Wow.
which is rather young. Unfortunately, these days you see that's more common than anything. But
Yeah.
when you're that young, you already don't understand your emotions, and you feel like the world is against you. That's a hard battle to live. And I wasn't open about my emotions and my feelings. I was just more of a wild teenager. I was still a good kid, but just, it was the punk goth alternative kid, and took my frustrations out that way by being like a little emo kid.
Yeah.
And so around the age of 13, like I developed a self-harm issue. I was actually caught. I think I want to say maybe a teacher had noticed some of my cuts and like reported that to the school, had to get my parents involved. And I felt bad for them because not only did they not know, but it was reflecting badly on them as parents. And I had to explain like this was nothing to do with them. This wasn't an abuse thing. I was mandated to see a school therapist, not just a counselor. Like I had to see an in-school therapist. I'd be taken out of class every so often for this, which at the time I was like, "Hey, get out of class." And then kind of
I wouldn't know about that. I was homeschooled.
yeah. Oh goodness. Well, school for me, those middle school years were just not fun, and I think a lot of it was just my mental health being out of control. So things kind of got a little better for years, and then at 17, I had a self-harm relapse. So when I was younger, I'd say it was more depression based. And then as I became like around 17, that's when I started working. I had a car. I had to pay for my car. My parents were like, we can get you the car, but insurance, gas, all that, that's 100% on you. And mind you, it was like a clunky little beater. It was nothing nice.
This was at 17.
So I was basically working, my junior and senior year of high school to like turn around and pay for the car. So that's when I started really experiencing anxiety. And so I relapsed with self-harm, got better out of high school. And then around 23, so what people don't realize about self-harm is this an addiction just like any other. It is really hard not to fall back on comforting ways of anything, whether that's, sugar or drugs.
I didn't know that.
Hard.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Not
and
about,
so,
about that particular.
when you find that place of comfort and solace, and you find that thing that makes you feel like you're getting through it, you run back to that. So I had a relapse with that at 23. My life kind of fell apart, and I really had to start all over
That's
again.
super dark. I don't mean to sound funny, but that is
no,
very dark.
like I said, I'm going to be vulnerable about it. But
No,
it's just because I've learned from my experiences, and I wish, in where I am now, I wish so desperately that I had the voice that I had now then, because I think that would have been better off. But you just, growing up, especially as a teenager, like your emotions are already so hard to get through. You like I said, you feel like the world's against you. You don't feel like
You're not
you don't
really
have the
developed.
tools.
Yeah.
You don't have the tools. Mental health awareness was not then what it is now. You know what I mean?
I still feel like it's
necessarily-
lacking now.
It is. We're slowly getting there.
I still feel like it's
Slowly getting
lacking
there.
now.
It is. But and I finally at I think 3-4 years ago now, I really was like, I need to try to find a therapist. Like that's a journey in itself, and I know that's not easy for everybody. I got very, very lucky finding the woman that now treats me. We have a great relationship. She's not much older than me, so she gets things of my generational issues and things like that. And
Do you feel like therapy has helped?
Absolutely. That, and recently I've restarted on like some mental medications. Be open about that. I am not a fan of pharmaceuticals, but sometimes, even if it's just temporarily, you need something to kind of sort out your shit, for lack of a better word. And last year with that burnout, I was in just such a hole that I couldn't even attempt to work out what I was feeling, why I was feeling that way. But it was just complete brain fog across the board.
I think that's okay to even say, because you are, I think the first step excuse me, I think the first step, which is the biggest step, is acknowledging it, and then after acknowledging it, doing something about it, which is the next biggest step. And those are probably the two hardest steps as well. That's why so many people, they probably look at those two steps as like gigantic mountains or walls that they have to climb up. And I mean, I commend you for even being open about it, because there's a lot of people that they just live in denial and they don't want to get any kind of help, or people that kind of keep it to themselves. And
It's not healthy.
it isn't healthy. I think it's a lot worse with males, but because they're taught not to talk about their shit, but that's a different rabbit hole. But I think that we need to somehow be more positive about people opening up about their.
Well, being vulnerable when you're somebody who has suffered is a big part of that. Using your voice on, your platforms or a situation like this to say, I've also been there and I am working on making my way out. I'm not better. Therapy, working on your mental health, that is a process. And sometimes it takes years. You work on a situation, and you get the tools to work on that. And sometimes in the process of working on that, old stuff comes up. And now you've got, old things maybe you didn't remember, or traumas that have surfaced and these things. So now you've got to backtrack. Or sometimes something comes up and you're not ready to face that yet. And you've got to put it on a shelf and come back to it later. There's a couple things that I've I can't talk about it today. We got to come back to this at another session. And that's okay too. In the process of, I think the goal really should be working on yourself. If you can't work, if you aren't ever evolving and changing anyways, there's a problem right out of the gate. You should always be growing and working on yourself, which is a big thing that I've learned in this therapy journey is like I can't, my relationship with everybody else is going to be affected if I don't have a relationship with myself. If I don't know me, if I don't have me down at the end of the day, because you literally have nothing else but yourself at the end of the day.
What other things do you, just like a short list of things that you do? Because for me, it's been reconnecting with the things that I love to do. So it's reading, riding my motorcycle, and exercising. And then exercising is a big one because I can feel almost an immediate change in my mood when I'm done exercising.
I'm still working on that part.
Yeah, I mean, it's I was listening to this one podcast with this one dude. He's like, I don't even know his name, but he's a very successful business person. And he goes, I put my fitness before my business, because not only does it help with like mental health, but people also respect you when you take care of yourself. He used an example is like when you walk into a room, a meeting, and you are physically fit, people automatically will respect you for that. So you already have
You carry yourself in a different way.
Correct. So this is something that I was aware of 10 years ago when I used to hit the gym 6-7 days a week. And I lost sight of that. I started my business and I went from, deadlifting and squatting to picking up Wendy's and Taco Bell because I was editing. Yeah. I'm editing till 2 a.m. and waking back up at 6 a.m. to do it all over again. I mean,
work-life balance feels almost impossible to find. That can take years to sort that out.
But with that being said, what are the things that therapy? What else? Like
therapy, now medication, I'll be honest. And sometimes that's a process in itself. When I started back on this, I tried something that I had tried when I was younger. We started there and then that wasn't enough. So we moved to something else. I didn't do well with that. And that's one of the things that I hate the most is having to hop around and get it figured out. There's highs and lows that come with medications itself. But like I was saying before, the brain fog in general that I had, I just couldn't get anything done. It was almost like having severe like ADHD. You can't, you start working on one thing and then you stop in the middle of that and
procrastination,
then you do something else.
Procrastination,
that as well, or working so much on the wrong things, too many petty tasks and not getting enough of the bigger picture things done. So working on a lot of mindfulness and a lot of reflecting. You have to take these lessons or these tools that you're being given. Sometimes I've got little homework lessons to take home. You really have to reflect on those in your every single day life. Like a lot of my therapy sessions, I would say, are more like self-led, because by the time I come back to my next session and I'm like, I got to thinking about this, or this thought kind of came up, or like I said, old things that resurface and you realize how or why those affect you now, or how that ties into you. Like you can't, what's the word?
Can't force it.
Yeah, like I can't expect everything else in my life to, fall in line or to have these relationships with certain people when I don't even understand the way that I act for certain reasons, especially when it comes to acting out of emotion.
Yeah.
People don't stop and think, okay, well, why am I acting this way? Why am I getting upset? Why is this? And then communicating to whoever may be nearby. Like sometimes I wake up in a mad mood. I say that I'm in a bad mood today. Forewarning. I don't know why, maybe, but I'm in a bad mood. So if I have a little bit of an attitude today, like I'll tell this to my partner, it's not personal. Like, take it out on you.
Right.
Communicating how you feel, why you feel that way. So that is one of the biggest things from therapy, is just the reflecting. A lot of
It's good that you have somebody that understands that too.
God, yes.
Yeah, it's good that you have somebody that understands that too. What talk to me about your just like your so I have I don't know if I'm not weird, but
Everybody's
I have
weird.
I have short-term goals that I meet. So I have like little short-term goals that I set for myself every year. And then I have like really long-term goals that are like really big. Do you sort of live your life that way, or are you just kind of like
At the
go with the
moment,
flow?
no, because I'm really just trying to, I feel like, find my footing and confidence back in myself. Because it's like, with any
Confidence in what?
business model, really, in myself and my decision making and my work ethic and my relationships with anything or everybody, making my schedule. If you're not confident in that, everything falls to pieces. If your foundation of your house is not built sturdy, everything above it is going to crumble. And that is really something that I've been digging so deep the past like 3 or 4 years of working on myself. And that alone has drastically changed everything for me.
It goes to show confidence has nothing to do with the outside. It's all within.
People can make you feel a certain way, but you've got to have that belief in yourself. Even like I said, with negativity, it's easier to brush it off when you're like, no, I don't feel that way about myself. Bye.
Career wise, do you see yourself still doing the same things for the next 10 years, or are you?
There's some other things I've considered myself doing. Maybe some things like I go back to school for, or maybe get in like the beauty industry.
Oh, interesting.
Esthetician services, that kind of thing. But I've also considered
That's
go
like
back to
huge right now.
working on cars. Like I one of the things in my therapy that I had to let go of was I kept going back to, well, if this doesn't work out, what am I going to do? If this doesn't work out, what am I going to do? And it's not that I don't have 100 other life skills prior to me getting into this. I've held office positions, I've held managerial positions, I've done a multitude of other things that, of course, never made me happy the way that this did. But this, I say that this also has its trials. But this industry, like sex work specifically, really doesn't have like a cap or a limit. I mean, it goes where it takes you, as long as you, there's grannies out here.
Yeah, but you're happy doing it.
Yeah, I think maybe having something else as an additional support, but I'm not really anymore like stressing myself on, I've got to get into this like now. If you've got a good thing going, just keep it going. Because if you're taking away from the thing that you got a good thing going, it's not going to be a good thing going anymore if you're having to take your energy and whatever away from that.
Yeah.
So
it kind of reminds me of what I was going to mention this when you were talking about the OnlyFans stuff. It's so funny how, for example, strippers nowadays, they're glorified almost, especially in the entertainment industry.
thank TikTok for that one.
Yeah, they're glorified. But for some reason, when it comes to OnlyFans creators, it's like your people just
Now,
talk
see,
so
I
much.
see it differently as someone from the inside. I mean, like,
How do you see it?
sex workers unite. Strippers are.
I'm just
friends,
talking about what I
girls,
see
and
on
vice
TikTok and
versa.
Instagram. How do you see it?
Social media has glorified these industries because of certain people who have it like that, and then it makes the industry overwater because everybody thinks that they can have it like that, and that's not the case. A lot of strip clubs now are rather empty. There's a lot of times you've got more girls working than you have customers in there. It has taken a very big
Do you
hit.
think that changed because of the pandemic?
Absolutely. A lot of
That's where OnlyFans blew up, was in the pandemic, right?
More so, yeah, because you had more people jumping to that platform, so you had more people promoting it. So then people are like, "Oh, what's this?"
But it's just like nothing new. It's just like another platform.
Yeah, no, OnlyFans has been around for years
No
prior
way.
to the pandemic. Yeah,
That's
like 2014,
fucking nuts.
2015. It's
I
been
thought
around
it
for
was
a very long time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but the craze of it, it's now a household name. But a lot of, as a creator, content creator, a stripper, dancer, someone who does escort services, like it's all glorified on the internet, and it is not that case for everybody. And there's a small percentage of people that it is like that for. In content creating specifically, you see a lot of stats and percentages and fan counts, and there's a lot of inner workings, a lot of behind the scenes stuff to that. Like, unfortunately, some top creators have gotten there, I don't want to say pyramid scheme like, but in a sense of making money off people below them. You know, they've got these trial links, or they do paid promos. So then their pages just turn into like a paid promo page, which some people like, some people don't. But if you're getting tips for these paid promos on OnlyFans, your percentage is going to go up.
See, this is like a whole business.
See? Yeah. And there's a whole side of that, the inner workings of that can adjust stats. So just because somebody is top 0.2% doesn't actually make them one of the best creators.
I think it's really hard for other people to understand that it's literally just work for most people in the industry, and that's all they see it as. I mean, I know I've talked to a couple of girls that I used to work with. I remember one of them telling me that they hated it just like any other job, but it gives them a lot of financial freedom.
Yeah.
And it gives them a lot of flexibility, blah, 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 blah.
That was a part of my issue last year, is I felt a little bit of a flip. It felt more of a burden than something that I loved. I started to see some of the really negative effects of it, and that dealing with that mental flip is really difficult. But you're right, it is work just like any other, which is something that I've actually come to terms with this year. I had a conversation with I don't know if she's a heavily tattooed rather famous sex worker. So I've met her and worked with her. She's amazing. But I had a talk with her about it, and she said, because she does full production porn as well, and she's like, you know, as much as you can love it and there's so many positive things, it is a job, and sometimes your job is going to make you do things that you do not like, but you have to do it. If you want the money, this is something that you signed up for. You have to get it done, and you have to do it. And that was one of the things that I really had to focus on this year.
Do you think most of those sex workers, if they had the opportunity to make the same kind of money to do something else that wasn't sex related, do you think they would do that? Or do you think
if it came with the same freedoms, and the same equivalent of money, the same freedoms, yeah. 100%. I mean, I can't say I wouldn't maybe necessarily jump ship either. But then a part of me, I feel like would probably also miss it a lot. This is now, I feel like it would be a hole in my life if this was gone.
And I think this is what some people don't accept or don't like, is that there are creators like yourself that generally love what they do. And I mean, shit, man, we live in America. Like, to each its own. You do what makes you happy. This is
not
what
hurting anybody. Go for it.
This is what the country was built on. I'm not gonna judge you for it, but like, you know, I've spent quite a bit of time with you on shoots, and like, you're one of the nicest, most awesome people in the world.
Thank you.
And like, if I even if I didn't know what you did, it wouldn't change. And I know what you do, but it still doesn't change because I've gotten to interact with you. But that's what a lot of people have trouble.
We are people at the end of the day. We have real feelings and real emotions. And
there are some creators and OnlyFans creators and sex workers that this is all that they have. And that's just another rabbit hole we can go down. But I mean, the system that we have now in this country has made it super hard for people to make a decent living. I mean, I have to work my ass off to live the life that I want to live, and I still don't get to live my life because why? I have to get up the next day and do it all over again.
Yep.
So that's another rabbit hole we can go down. But I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but what I like to ask everyone on my podcast is if there was a piece of advice you can give someone. It could be maybe the younger you, or it could be just another individual that wants to go and do their own thing, that wants to pursue their own career, or whatever the case. What would be that piece of advice that you gave that person?
Work on yourself first, really and truly. It's hard to lead and lead by example, lead in love, lead in happiness, lead in anything if you don't even have a solid trust and faith in who you are.
And accept who you are.
Yes, it's if the business is you, the brand is you, something that you are creating, you have got to be solid in yourself, or every decision, everything moving forward is just going to fall apart. You know, if you're having issues emotionally, traumas, whatever it is, work through it. There is nothing more important than working on yourself. I'm so glad that I have really I prioritized myself lately, because it, like I said earlier, it affects everything else in your life. So at the end of the day, if nothing else, please try to positively work on yourself, because it affects every relationship and everything else moving forward.
Very good advice. Advice that I needed a couple months ago.
You matter, everybody. You matter.
So we're gonna close out. Tell people where they can find you on the socials and stuff like that.
Yeah, so just it's babyray.com. I've got a domain that now goes to a website with all my links. So
Sweet.
Pretty much everything that you need is going to be on there. It's
Sweet. Baby Ray is also, she's kind of like all over my page. We've shot so much. So I will also link her information in the description below. Thank you so much for coming. I wish these were longer, because I feel like we just broke the ice.
I know we did.
But,
well, you'll have to invite me back. We'll do this again.
Yes.
There's so many other conversations we said we could continue to have.
Oh, I know. The relaunch of the podcast is in July.
Okay.
Trying to stay consistent with video podcasting is a whole nother thing. But granted, I've made adjustments, and now I have people to help me, like Kevin, that are going to help me edit the podcast. So I have Kevin, I have Elizabeth, and then I just hired somebody who is going to delegate my marketing stuff.
Good for you. That's important.
Yeah,
you cannot do everything on your own. As a business grows, you cannot take on everything. Obviously. So that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
But yeah, I'll have you on. I mean, I'll have you on here soon. Because we're gonna be pumping these out, and I like to invite people that haven't been on a podcast before, just so they can get a feel of it.
Yeah, no, I love this.
So like the next time they come in, it's like full throttle. But thank you so much, and thank you for everybody listening to the HisViewZ podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Peace.